Big time fight at welterweight. Coming up this weekend, we have the former eternal welterweight champion, Jack Della Maddalena, taking on the former M1 Global middleweight champ, Gorets, Ramazan Emeev. And for Jack Della Maddalena, he's kind of going from like the basement to the penthouse in terms of a booking situation, because he fought dead game Pete Rodriguez in the respective UFC debuts his last time out, finished him in the first round. And now he's getting Ramazan Emeev, a guy who, well, the book's been out on Emeev for years now. What's he going to do, Matt? I can tell you exactly what he's going to do. First round, wrestle. Second round, wrestle. Third round, cardio kickboxing.
That's the weird thing about Ramazan Emeev. Like, he knows what he's good at for about 10 minutes, and then, what's that movie where Drew Barrymore can't remember anything?
50 First Dates.
There you go. Ramazan Emeev every third round is like Drew Barrymore when she wakes up. He's like, wait, who am I married to? What am I good at? And it turns out he's not a good striker whatsoever, but he wakes up thinking he is.
It's like Ramazan Emeev goes, let's give the people a show. I know what they want. The Ramazan show. Let's go kickboxing.
If he strikes for 30 seconds against Jack Della Maddalena, he's going to be unconscious in this fight. Because here's the thing about Jack Della Maddalena. I said this last week about how Erin Blanchfield, I thought very highly of her. I still think quite highly of her, all things considered. But I think of her what most people think of Miranda Maverick, and luckily it's paid off for me. Whatever you think of Ian Gary, scratch that right now. Jack Della Maddalena is exactly what people think Ian Gary is, and I gotta be honest, if they fought right now, I think he'd destroy Ian Gary. Bit of a hot take, but that's what we're here for. Jack Della Maddalena is a really, really nice prospect coming out of Australia. And I gotta be honest, Australia, ever since like the Robert Whittaker boom, because like Robert Whittaker is sort of like the Michael Bisping for Australian fighters. There wasn't a lot. I guess Ross Pearson probably is. He had
Dan Kelly.
Ross Pearson at least was the coach for that season, UFC Smashes, which got Robert Whittaker into the UFC. So there were a few before, but Whittaker was kind of the first UFC champion and the first fighter of championship caliber. And now we have seen so many more fighters from that region of the world. And Jack Della Maddalena does sort of represent the next evolution in Australian MMA because he is extremely well-rounded. And this is going to be a really interesting fight against a guy like Ramazan Emeev, who, like you said, he's going to wrestle with everything he has for 10 minutes of this fight. But the good news is, it's almost like you're fighting Anthony Rumble Johnson. With Rumble, it was, you gotta survive 3 minutes. Now, those 3 minutes are very, very hard to survive, and very few people have been able to. But if you're able to withstand that big storm, it gets much easier on the other side. With Ramazan Emeev, if you can defend some of those early takedowns and really make him pay for the entries, the fight is going to get easier minute after minute, round after round. And this is why this fight, it's more interesting to me than competitive, because I do think Ramazan Emeev, he can have a lot of success early on in this fight with his wrestling, but this is going to be a great litmus test for Jack Della Maddalena, because if he is able to beat Ramazan Emeev, let's say he can defend those takedowns early, that's going to give me a lot more confidence in his overall takedown defense moving forward, because Ramazan Emeev, if he is great at anything, it is securing takedowns, so being able to defend takedowns from a guy like that will put a lot more stock into his takedown defense moving forward. And let's say he is able to get the finish over a guy like Ramazan Emeev, who is quite durable, can take a shot, can last late into fights. I think it will prove that Jack Della Maddalena is sort of one of the bigger fish in the welterweight prospect pond, if you will. But if Ramazan Emeev has success in that first round and that second round, Maddelena is going to be under a lot of pressure to just go out there and try to get a finish in those last 5 minutes, and that's going to be a very tough ask.
Yeah, like you look at this fight, and for Della coming into this one, I mean, the guy can strike well from both stances. His best weapon, I talked about it earlier with some other fighters, but his left hand, like if he's working from orthodox, it's the left hook. If he's working from southpaw, throws it straight down the middle. Like he can do a lot of different things with just that one weapon, and you love to see it. And for Della, moves well on the back foot and keeps his head moving, which you love to see, like a high-level prospect should. But this is a guy that lost his first 2 pro fights. Most people go, well, I'm going to throw in the towel now. And then he won 10 straight, and he told his coach that if he won his 10th fight, he'd get into the UFC, and son of a gun, didn't he end up doing that. He beats Angeloso, who's now in the UFC in his own volition, but then he fights Pete Rodriguez. And listen, Pete Rodriguez is dead game, I get it, like he's got a lot of knockout wins, and he's a first round guy, but it was originally supposed to be friggin' Warley Alves. Like that's how highly the UFC thinks of a guy like Della, matching him up with Warley Alves, only to get Pete Rodriguez at short notice, and now Ramazan Emeev. I mean, again, I say the book's been out on Emeev for a really long time, former M1 Global middleweight champ, but in the UFC, it went over Sam Alvey, Alberto Mina, who They got to 13-1. The UFC was like, you're not taking this fight? Okay, see you later. They released him, beat Stefan Seklic, loses to Rocco Martin, beats Niklas Stutz, beats David Zavada by split decision, loses to Danny Roberts by split decision, which was a weird one. But I look at the other fights, like a win over Anatoly Takov by majority decision. Anatoly Takov doesn't fight very often, but he's one of Bellator's best middleweights. So, good wins for Emeev on his record, and the length of his, again, a win by finish over Albert Duraev, who I wish would fight more often as well. This is just a weird one because Della is definitely way better with the stand-up. I've seen in some of his fights in the regional scene where he gets held up against the cage and he can't really put off much of his own offense. But listen, newsflash, he won those fights when he was able to get back out in distance and separated. But he will get held up, and against a guy like Emeev, it does give me pause. So I look at the odds in this one. Della opened at plus 130, but he's now minus 139. If you look at it for Emeev, line flip, open minus 150, now a plus 113 or thereabouts, 115. We have a look over on Tapology. Surprise to us there to you. Fans like Jack Della Maddalena style. Fans don't like Ramazan Emeev's style. I like it because it's like, oh, I know what I'm going to get.
Okay, Robin Black. I'm going to be honest. Ramazan Emeev is the cure for insomnia. It is tough to watch.
Ramazan Emeev. Show that to your friends that don't like MMA. Just show them the third round. I'm going to say over under 70% Jack Della.
Over, without a doubt.
It is over 766 total votes, 81%. Della, 52% by decision, 40% by knockout for the 19% that have Emeev. 82% by decision, Matt. Ramazan Emeev, weird that he went down to, I guess, welterweight kind of late in his career. And if you look at it, out of the overall losses that he's been finished once by knockout and once by submission. Will he get knocked out this weekend?
He very well could, and this is the type of opponent who can make him pay for his entries. That's why I like Jack Della Maddalena in this matchup. Ramazan Emeev can win 2 rounds, but he's not going to damage you a lot in those first 2 rounds. So I do think Maddelena will have the door open for him to get back in the 3rd round, rally, have one of those like Darren Elkins, Mirsad Bektic type comebacks if he is losing the first 2 rounds. Because, like you said, Emeev does have a striking mindset in the 3rd round, and he's not that great at it. He's a very fatigued striker by the time that round comes around. And I'm telling you, Della Maddalena can strike with the best of them at welterweight. Like, yes, he's 10-2, or 11-2, sorry. Yes, he lost his first 2 fights, but like, his striking is as crisp as they come. He can strike from both stances. He has a very educated jab. He has a good left hand, like you said, from both stances. And I do think he is improving at only 25 years of age. So I think Della Maddalena is the type of fighter who, if you're not on board and you're not watching right now, like, get on board, because a win over Ramazan Emeev, maybe to a casual UFC fan, they won't put a lot of stock into it. You know, Emeev's kind of boring, it's not that great, but if you're a prospect who's only 13 fights into his professional career, and you're able to beat someone like Ramazan Emeev, who is a big welterweight, knows what he's good at, has a dedicated game plan, that's really going to speak to how good Della Maddalena can be in the future.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Della is only 25 years old. Emeev, welterweight, 35 years old. I think he gets to win this weekend. I think you win the first round, you win the second round. The third round, I've talked about it all video. Ramazan comes out in the third round with his fist down at his sides and walks straight forward into guys.
It's like prime Fedor, but with none of the skills on the feet.
Like, I'm going up against Jean-Claude Van Damme, final boss, Ramazan Emeev. Here comes Gorets. But I think if he can bank the first and the second, this is a guy that, like you said, dedicated game plan and does not stray away from it. And I understand the split decision loss to Danny.
And then he drew Barry Morris the 3rd round.
Danny Roberts notwithstanding, but I love the fact that he just goes to the well with the wrestling. He has a decided advantage against anybody that he fights in that area, and I think he's going to win the fight off of his wrestling. So I hate myself for saying it because I love Jack Della so much and I love his style, but I'm going to go with the now underdog Gorets, Ramazan Emeev. We're split on the pick. You have Australia's Della. Let us know down below in the comment section. 80% on Tapology with Della. I know the fans absolutely love him, and so do I. But split on that pick. Big fights on the rest of this card, including the rematch between Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. The 2 title fights up at the top. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.